That housekeeping slide is truncated to me.
Me too.
There we go.
The audio.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Lawrence. I'm the chair of the Conference for Food Protection. I'd like to welcome you all to our very first session of the 2020 virtual biennial meeting of the Conference for Food Protection. This is the committee reports and updates session. And we have all the 5 council committee chairs who will be presenting reports to you, as well as a committee that was created and reports directly to the executive board. That is the roaster pig committee, we call it for short. And I do welcome you all and hope you enjoy the session. There will be time for you to participate in Q&A if needed throughout the session. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. I'm Ben Chapman. I'm co-chair of the program committee. I'm a professor and interim department head in agricultural and human sciences at NC State University. I'll be the moderator for today's session. The goal for today is to really provide each committee chair with about 10 minutes to update the CFP membership on committee activities. Before we start, I'd really like to ask that, oops, sorry, I muted myself. I'd like to ask, before we start, I'd like to ask that all individuals who are not presenting, that you check to make sure that you are not unmuted, that you mute your microphone, because with over 100 of us, having announcements in the background can be really distracting for not just the presenters, but everyone else who is on the call today. Just to keep things flowing, I will ask if there is time within our 10-minute slots for each of our committee reports. If there's time left, we will have questions. If not, just to make sure that we end at noon Eastern time, we'll ask you to follow up directly with committee chairs and those who are providing the reports afterwards. So there may or may not be time for questions, is really what I wanted to say. So without further ado, I will pass the microphone on to Mitzi Baum, who is the chair of the Food Recovery Committee, for her brief report.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ben. Happy to be here and representing the Food Recovery Committee along with my co-chair, Sandra Craig. At the 2018 biennial meeting, the Food Recovery Committee was formed to address the unresolved questions related to the practice of food donations posed during the Council 1 debate on issue 2018-124. The conference charges included reviewing current practices and guidance, and determining if a modification of the FDA food code was needed for food donation as an allowed practice. Our charges were evaluate existing materials, including AFTO guidance, comprehensive resource for food recovery programs, and any other relevant guidance and documents pertaining to donated food, update the CFP guidance as needed, and evaluate opportunities to better disseminating existing guidance. 2, identify best practices for handling, storage, and labeling of food donations. 3, examine existing state regulations that address food safety procedures for donation. 4, recommend any necessary language changes to the FDA food code to ensure the safety of donated food. And 5, report back to the 2020 biennial meeting. To tackle these charges, we broke the committee down into subcommittees to accomplish all of the tasks. There was task 1A, 1B, and 1C, task 2, and task 3. Each subcommittee completed their work. Task 1, drawing from existing materials, especially CFP comprehensive guidelines, develop separate 2-page user-friendly, visually appealing voluntary guidelines for each of the key components of the retail food donation supply chain that describes the practices necessary to ensure foods being donated are safe, wholesome, and properly labeled. Key components of the retail food donation supply chain for which guidelines should be developed included task 1A, licensed retail food establishments. This includes retail food stores, restaurants, institutional food service, vending operations. Task 1B, intermediary organizations that retrieve, transport, and or store donated foods for distribution to charitable receiving facilities. And task 1C, charitable receiving organizations that distribute donated foods directly to consumers. So the next few slides, what you'll see on my screen are the handouts that were developed to address all of these specific items. Specifically, they are colorful, they're concise, and provide directions on how to donate food. I'll switch my screen now to handout 1B, which was how to transport donated food. Going on to handout 1C, how to serve donated food. And then the last handout is 1D, serving a highly susceptible population. We also developed framework document with each of the products developed under task 1 and task 2 to be introduced and highlight key concepts. But more importantly, we have recommended language, and I know there's a lot of words on this slide, and I apologize. You can see all the language, of course, in the issue documents, and you can print them out. But this is the recommended language to FDA to modify the most current version of the FDA Model Food Code to include a definition of food donation and to issue interpretive guidance of existing food code requirements addressing the donation of food to individuals in need. We want this to specifically address food donation in the FDA food code and provide guidance to ensure safe food donations and provide for consistent regulation of the donation process. Short and sweet, but that's my report today. Ben?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mitzi. Because of time, just to keep us on schedule, I'm going to ask that we'll hold questions for Mitzi until the end if we do have time available, and if not, I'll ask you to follow up with Mitzi. Our second report comes to us from the Allergen Committee, and I will pass the microphone to Jeff Hawley.
Good morning, everyone. Let me get my screen share up just a moment.
We can see it.
Okay,
Jeff.
all right, good. So thank you for the opportunity. As I said, my name is Jeff Hawley. I'm the chair of the Allergen Committee and my vice chair with Mike Pascasilla with Health Department in Connecticut. And we had a very large committee. We had a total of 86 participants. It included food industry, both restaurant and retail, regulatory at all levels, academia, training, FAIR, which is the Food Allergen Research and Education, and then Menu Trinfa, which is also an allergen group. So we had a lot of people that were very interested in this topic.
Jeff, you might want to put it on presentation mode.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Recording in progress.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling here a bit.
I think if you go down to the right bottom
Yeah.
and you hit the little, that one, hit that and see if that works.
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Looks like it's still thinking. That's okay. Let's not waste any more time. We can see
Yeah.
it. No
Okay.
problem. Thank you.
All right. So these were the charges that our committee was given. I'm not going to read through all of that, but basically there were some issues that were submitted in 2018, and we were asked to take those issues and just kind of go back and work through those and then present our recommendations at the 2020 meeting. So first thing we needed to do was figure out what the current rules are concerning allergen labeling, allergen notification, and also allergen training. And then after we figured out what the current rules were, then we had to identify the gaps that may exist, determine how to close those gaps, and make the recommendations to CFP.
Jeff, we're still having trouble. I know you've worked so hard on this. We're not sure if you're sharing, maybe you're sharing the wrong screen.
He needs to answer the question that says, got it.
Yeah, say got it.
Oh,
There you go. And
okay. So do you see the slide now that says CFP Allergen Committee formation of 2 groups?
yes, we see that. We
Okay.
also see your next slide, but I think that's not a problem. We'll all take, we'll keep looking left. Keep going. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so we formed 2 work groups, one to deal with the notification piece, and then the other one to deal with the training piece. The notification work group was chaired by Emily Follett, and the training work group was chaired by Betsy Craig. So the current labeling rules or notification rules are found in 21 CFR Part 101, which is the labeling section of the CFRs. Also, labeling rules for allergens are found in the FALCPA. For USDA regulated foods, they're found in CFR 9, parts 317 and 381. And then there also are some sections of the food code that deal with allergen notification, labeling, and also allergen training. So after reviewing all of those, we figured out, and we kind of knew this up front, the labeling of foods, packaged foods for major food allergen is very good, it's very thorough. But what's not covered in any type of regulation is foods in a food service situation, whether it's in restaurants or whether it's in supermarkets. So that's where the gaps are. And because of those gaps, we've had some localities who kind of passed their own rules. In November of 2016, Montgomery County, Maryland passed a rule that required all eating and drinking establishments to have on-premises an employee who's completed and passed an approved food allergen training course. That was effective July 1st of 17. In August of 2018, Edison, New Jersey passed an ordinance that required every facility that serves food or beverages to have a menu that identifies foods that contain major food allergens, and this was effective on April 1st of 2019. Additionally, there are 4 states that have enacted allergen training and or notification requirements. So because of the gaps, we have these localities, states, or counties that have kind of passed their own rules for allergen notification or training, which makes it hard for the food establishments that operate in multiple areas to just have to deal with those local requirements. So we submitted 6 issues to be considered in this biennial meeting coming up. I'm not going to go through all of those, but the first one is the committee report. We developed a guidance document, and then we have issues concerning allergen training and also notification of the major food allergens. So that is all I have as far as the allergen committee report.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Your brevity means that we do have some time for a question or two if anybody who's attending would like to ask a question of Jeff and the allergen committee. Donna, go ahead and turn your mic on and ask your question.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Jeff, for that report. Since you're using language of major food allergens, you didn't limit it to FALPA. Would sesame now be included since that's the recent addition?
Yes, and we did not get into that at all. It's whatever the FDA has identified as major food allergens that would be covered by what we are recommending as the new rules.
Perfect. That will make it evergreen because I have a feeling we'll have some additional
Yeah.
allergens added. That's good. Thanks.
Sharon, I know you had your hand up. Do you have
That was
a
my
question?
question.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank Jeff for the great work this committee did. I appreciate you, Jeff, and all the work you guys did. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Jeff. All right, we will move on to our next presenter. And so the committee is the Direct to Consumer Delivery Committee, and the chair and presenter is Dr. Dawn Schaffner. Dawn, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ben. So I got my PowerPoint up. I'm going over into presentation mode, and we will go ahead and get started. Can somebody confirm you guys can see my screen?
Confirmed.
Very good. So yeah, so I had the pleasure of chairing the Direct to Consumer Delivery Committee, and so I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we did as a committee. So I won't take the time to read the entire charge, but I do want to call out, and I called out in bold here on the slide, the relevant important text. So we, as many of you know, in the CFP 2016-2018 cycle, we had the first draft of this guidance document, and we were asked to basically update that document to include information regarding the safe delivery of food by third-party delivery services entities. And then we were also directed to revise the guidance document with focus on proper packaging, temperature control, return of compromised and abused products, and other food safety related topics. We were also asked to address food safety training for third-party delivery service entities, and then information on all food delivery practices. And then, of course, finally, to share our results, which we're going to be very happy to do at this CFP 2020 meeting, which we are having in 2021. Parallel with our charge, there were also a couple of other activities taking place. if I can get my slides to advance. AFTO was asked to develop guidance on regulation of direct-to-consumer online ordering establishments, such as Amazon. AFTO had a series of meetings around this, but in the end decided that they really could not move forward on this. But I know that FDA is having a public meeting coming up soon, and so I think we'll see some action there as well. I also want to point out that the GFSI e-commerce GFSI had an e-commerce technical working group, and I won't read again the charges there, but that was a parallel charge, and they did complete their charge. Anthony Offray from Amazon led that for GFSI, and Anthony was also a dedicated member of our committee. And so I don't think the guidance from the two groups is out of sync. It's not identical, of course, and it takes a little bit different perspective. But obviously, this is a very hot area with a lot of people interested in it. I thought we had the biggest committee, but boy, I really my praise goes out to the allergen folks for wrangling an even larger committee. We had 18 voting members. We had 25 at-large non-voting members. We had 8 federal consultants, the CFP Council 3 chair and vice chair. We had AFTO representation, et cetera. We met every 2 weeks as a full committee plus subcommittee meetings as we got towards the end of the process. I have not added it all up, but I suspect it is hundreds of person hours of effort. And again, call out a number of Amazon volunteers from Amazon, Blue Apron, Uber Eats, Jet.com, FoodWit, companies that are active in this space. And over on the right-hand side, it's not meant to be read necessarily. It's a bit of an eye chart, but you can see that's the full committee as captured from my spreadsheet. Here's a list of the voting members. Again, I won't read this to you. Giant thanks to my co-chair or vice chair, Albert Espinoza. Albert, I believe, cannot join us right now. He's on an airplane out there making food safe around the country, but you can see a list of everybody, and again, very well represented. Academia, industry, all phases of industry, as well as all levels of government represented as voting members. And then, of course, a lot of folks interested as non-voting members. And again, you can see that long list there. Just to briefly give you an outline of the report, one of the things that we did was we took the existing report and we reworked it. And so one of the aspects of the reworking is we created this chapter 4 or section 4 of the document entitled Foundational Concepts. And the idea of foundational concepts, these were things that related to both direct-to-consumer guidance as well as third-party delivery guidance. And so we pulled in some overarching concepts there. The direct-to-consumer guidance netted out at about 12 pages. I think that's probably a little bit less than in the previous report, but only because we pulled out those foundational concepts. And then third-party delivery guidance. This was stuff that had to be rewritten from whole cloth. So basically rewritten, just brand new text. And again, super, debt of gratitude to the subcommittee that did that. I mean, cutting and modifying the direct-to-consumer guidance was relatively easy because we had existing text, but that third-party delivery guidance stuff had to be created from scratch. So a lot of work there. And then we have a number of things that we put in the appendices. We've got 8 pages of appendices, and those significantly expanded from the earlier document. One of the things that we were not able to put in the document, but I share this every time I talk about the work of the committee. We had a couple of activities early on where we attempted to kind of wrap our heads around the complexity of this rapidly evolving area. And what you can see here, and again, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but this is one way of conceptualizing it. And so you can think about it in terms of different business models, and you can see online restaurants, meal or other kits, ready-to-eat meals, third-party delivery services. So these are the different kinds of companies arrayed on the left-hand margin. And then going across, you can see different companies will handle different aspects of it. So for example, third-party delivery services and aggregators, they're really only managing an online only, I say, but managing an online ordering platform, and then maybe they have employees, maybe they have contractors, or then they have contractors, and then the last column sort of examples of that. So again, this was just an attempt to snapshot at the beginning of the process the complexity of this very rapidly evolving field, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve. But in the meantime, we've been very happy as a committee to try to contribute to hopefully helpful guidance on the topic. Thanks very much, Ben. That concludes my presentation.
Great, thanks so much, Don. Again, we are a little bit ahead of schedule, so if it's okay with Don, we'd be happy to entertain any questions for him or for his committee. I'm seeing.
It looks like a no, Ben.
Yeah, so we'll move on quickly. So our next presenter is Dr. Anna Sorobin, and she will be presenting the activities of the Produce Wash Water Committee.
Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing us to present the summary of this enormous amount of work we all did. So I'm going to be covering the summary of the work we have done as a food produce committee. And as you may know, this committee worked for 2 years, 4 years, two seasons, I would call it. We were very good and big committee. As Don mentioned, our committees are huge, and it was somewhat difficult to work with everybody being on the committee, voting or non-voting members. We met every 2 weeks, and at the end, last, I would say half a year, I don't know how often did we meet, almost every day at some point. My co-chair, Jamie Hernandez, he's not at the call today, but he shared the responsibility of chairing these committees. We had 20 voting members and, as I said, 41 total members, again, representing industry, regulatory, and academia. And I wanted to thank everybody who was part of the committee for tremendous amount of time and work put into this committee work. So the charges of 2018-2020, now in response to issue 2018-318 presented on the 2018 CFP, it was decided to recreate a committee which was again started in 2016. These are the charges on the screen, are the charges of this new recreated committee. Develop a produce washing and crisping guidance document for retail food establishment, which includes the following. Detail the handling, cleaning, and sanitation practices related to washing and crisping of produce. Describe the criteria for crisping versus produce washing. Clarify the types of chemicals and their use for washing and crisping. So as we discussed different type of produce washing, we identified several most common ways of produce washing. There are many more, but these are most common ones. The first one, when the produce is immersed in the water. This is not the practice which is recommended by FDA, but it is most common one. There is another practice, water only rinse or spray, sometimes with partial submersion. This is more preferable from a perspective of food safety. The third one is treatment of the produce using non-EPA registered products. They could be done using submersion, rinse, or spray. These products do not have any antimicrobial claims. Their purpose is detergency. They remove soils and pesticides, mechanical removal. And the last group is, again, water treatment with EPA registered products by submersion, rinse, and spray. And the purpose of this product is reduction of cross-contamination in wash water. And as I said, there are other methods and other treatments. They are all described in the guidance document which we put together. But these are the major ones. Now, the most difficult and is difficult process in a charge which we had was to identify the crisping process and show how is it different from washing. So produce washing, a process to remove soil and other contaminants. Produce crisping, on the other hand, the process of rehydration produce for purposes of improving the quality and appearance. So they have different purposes and different mechanisms. This little table shows you, again, the purposes are different. Washing is for food safety. Crisping is for quality and appearance. Washing in water, both. Refrigeration, crisping requires refrigeration, and most of the time it's being done. With washing, not necessarily. It could be done, could be not. Methods and risk controls for washing and crisping whole raw fruits and vegetables are included in the guidance document which we put together. There are two separate chapters, one covering washing and another covering crisping. Now, this chart, schematic chart, is an attempt to simplify the language which are listed in a food code 7, chapter 7.2.412. So middle part of it pretty much tells you what the food code says, and I'm not going to repeat that. Then the food code tells us that there could be, these products could be registered with EPA. On the right green boxes, you can see requirements which are portion which is relevant to EPA. These products are controlling public health microorganisms in wash water, such as Listeria, E. coli, and Salmonella. They could control spoilage organisms, and they also remove soil and other surface contaminants. They're all different. You have to read the label to understand what each product does. On the left side, there is another category of products which also met the requirements of the middle boxes, but it doesn't have antimicrobial claims and therefore didn't go through EPA registration process. The purpose of these products is to remove soil and other surface contaminants. So we try to make it simple. Is it simpler or not? I don't know, but that was our attempt to do that. Now, in order to bring the similar information in a table format, not everybody liking schematic, we try to put it in the table format. It has similar but a little bit different information, and I'm not going to read that, so whoever is interested can go to this table and read it in detail and better understand what it takes to control different types of contaminations using different type of products. Now, as a result of this work, committee came up with several issues which we're going to be submitting. So the first one, we're reporting and acknowledging Produce Wash Committee work, and we're asking to disband the committee. The second issue, we're asking to approve and post the guidance document which we put together on CFP website. And the last one, amend the food code to include produce wash testing devices. We all know that EPA and FDA go through a very rigorous process to make sure that the products which are used in produce washing are safe and effective. And therefore, the concentrations listed on the product label are designed to show that the products are safe and effective. Therefore, going below or above these concentrations may be is wrong because the products may not be safe or effective. Therefore, we are asking to add a chapter to the food code where the measurement of this concentration is required. Today is not. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Anna, thank you so much for your report. We do have a minute or two for questions for Anna on behalf of her committee, if there are questions out there. All right, well, seeing none, we will move on to our next presenter, and I will pass things over to Veronica Bryant, who will be presenting on behalf of the Product Assessment Committee.
Good morning or afternoon or whatever. I guess nobody's in the afternoon quite yet because I'm on the East Coast. I feel like this work was done a lifetime ago, but excited to share it with you all. Ben, is my screen showing okay?
It absolutely is.
All right, thanks so much. So I'm just going to talk to you real briefly about the work that we did for the Product Assessment Committee, which, if you remember back to 2018, is a committee that was born out of an issue that was presented by a chain corporation who had a product assessment done and was having different interpretations of that come up at each individual health department across the country. And because of that, these were the charges that were created for our committee. And basically, we wanted to take the work that was done by the National Advisory Committee on Microbiological Criteria for Foods, or NACMF, challenge study guidance and make it a bit more easy for local health department folks and mom and pop operators to understand and implement. So there were multiple documents that we were kind of charged with coming up with, a template and checklist, some information on how to select for organisms, how to interpret results, some information on modeling, and then to report this information back. So we started out the process with a pretty long list of things to accomplish. And I would like to shout out to my committee here who did the work over the 2-year period. We had a total of 14 members that were voting members and had a lot of input and good work done by our at-large members as well. So our first meeting for this committee was held on September 12th, 2018. Again, that feels like a lifetime ago. We split the work because it was so heavy in document development. We split the work among 2 subcommittees. I ran one, and my co-chair, John Freed from Amazon, ran the other. And so we worked on the tasks concurrently, and we kind of checked off the documents through the subsequent order as they were listed in the charge. Each subcommittee met once a month through the 2018-2019 calendar years, and then our full committee met once a quarter. So again, a lot of volunteer man hours to work on this important work. So just a couple of highlights, I guess, from the document, which is included in the issue packet for Council 3. We came up with a few definitions that were mostly adapted from dictionary definitions, but gave some context for how these terms are appropriate when you're looking at challenge studies. Some examples of that are things like surrogate organisms and challenge study, just to make sure that everybody knew all the basics going into this, because the NACMF document is so technical. We felt like we needed to give some context. And then in that guidance document, there is a summary of several of the sections of the NACMF document, including, target organisms, duration of the study, and interpreting results. And so just taking the technical work that was done by NACMF and trying to make it a little easier in the context of a retail regulatory environment, we summarize that. And like I said, you can see that in the full committee report. Here are just some charts that I took out of our document, just to kind of see, how we presented this information. We tried to give some shelf life and safety margin information for people when they are trying to determine, how long of a study they need to do. We also have some information here on pathogens and the pass-fail criteria. We actually, as I'm looking at this slide, talked to FSIS in the last week or so, and there may be one small adjustment to this particular pathogen chart when it comes to Clostridium perfringens, but basically showing that for most pathogens, we're looking for 1 log of less than 1 log of growth across the shelf life. For staph and bacillus, we're looking at 3 log, and for Clostridium botulinum, we need to have no toxin detected. So that's just a kind of a summary. And then for the checklist, when people are actually looking over a challenge study and trying to determine, it's how well it was done and if it is complete and what it says, we have some of these places for people to record things like water activity and pH, the storage conditions, and then, to just write down what the pathogen was, and was it a concern? Was there growth? And so that will help local health departments that don't do this every day, hopefully, to take the information from NACMF and make it a bit more digestible for themselves. And then this is just a couple more sections out of the checklist, just because I know there was so much work that was done. We tried to present the information in as many different formats as possible. So there's also a side-by-side table that shows what the NACMF document requires and gives a place where you can write in what the actual study showed. So if you're trying to compare a challenge study to the requirements in the NACMF document, we have a worksheet for that as well. And so I just want to kind of close on the idea that this was a lot of work done by a lot of people, and it really was a group effort. There was no one person shouldering all of this important work. I would really like to thank my vice chair, John Freed, who works for Amazon and was very much more organized and good at stuff than me, and all the committee members, in particular, Dr. Don, who is part of NACMF and was part of that original document and provided us with information to connect that document to what we were doing that I think was super important for the success. Also for FSIS and FDA, who worked in consultation with us, and then for the council leadership and the issue chairs as well. So thank you all for this, and we'll talk more about it, I guess, next week when the issues come up for presentation.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It looks like we certainly have time for a question or two, and it looks like Christy Barlow from USDA may have a question based on her hand being up. Christy, go ahead and unmute if you have a question.
Thank you for that. And thank you for all the effort that went into this. I know it was a great deal of work and time and really good documents. And also thank you for considering our comment close to the end. I just had a question on the two items, and one was a checklist and one was a worksheet. And I was wondering if like one was geared towards retailers and one was geared towards state and local health department regulators, or are they both geared towards the same audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they really serve kind of two different purposes. The worksheet, so I guess they're really for the same audience for maybe a bit different purpose. The worksheet is the side-by-side that explains exactly what the challenge study is supposed to like conclude or include, and gives you a place to compare what you actually see so that you can look at the study in terms of design and make sure that from a design perspective, it meets what the NACMF document says. That worksheet or the checklist, excuse me, has a bit more of the specifics, like a place to record exactly what, what the pH is, what the water activity is. So to give you like the results of the challenge study and look at that in terms of its, whether it meets NACMF. So they really are separate, they have separate uses, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Veronica. Thanks for the question, Christy. Any other questions out there for Veronica? All right. Well, we'll move on to our final speaker in the update session. So I'll ask Erica Stapp Kamatani to turn her video and microphone on, and she's going to report on the safe handling and cooking of roaster pigs committee. And Erica, Lisa in the support system will be advancing your slides, so you should be just totally fine, and just let Lisa know when you would like a slide advanced.
Okay, thank you very much. So yes, name's Erica Stapp Kamatani, and I was one of the co-chairs for the safe cooking and handling of roaster pigs. And next slide, please. So the committee charges were to identify best practices around safe handling and cooking of roaster pigs, develop a best practice document for roaster pig preparation, including the proper handling, thawing, cooking, and temperature measurement, determine appropriate methods for sharing the document, and report the committee's findings and recommendations. Next slide. So much like some of the other committees, we did divide this work up into subcommittees. So we had a group that started off with researching the common methods for cooking roaster pigs. There really wasn't a whole lot of information out there as far as like scientific articles to like say, hey, this is how you need to do this, or any other best practice documents. So we started off with what's currently being done. As well as we found some outbreak investigations that identified the vulnerabilities that led to those outbreaks. And then we looked through those common methods and using the information from the outbreaks, as well as just going through and identifying the vulnerabilities in the common practices to put this together. So that we end up developing the guidance document that first discusses the history of the illnesses and the lessons learned goes into like why this is important, and then provides a section on practical recommendations. So basing it off of those common methods of cooking, and then what vulnerabilities exist and how to prevent that vulnerability from occurring. Next slide. And then we ended up submitting 3 issues based off of this. So the first issue is the acknowledgement of the report and to thank the members for their work and to disband the committee. The second issue is for the approval of the guidance document and to post a guidance document on the CFP website. And the third is to add the guidance document as a reference in Annex 2 of the FDA Food Code, as well as share the document through various avenues. Next slide. And the various avenues of sharing that we came up with was partnership meetings with stores, restaurants, and institutions, organizations with their respective constituents such as AFTO, NEHA, IFP, NAMI, AMP, National Pork Board, NRFSP, FSIS, CDC, and ServSafe, as well as coordinating through the states and their applicable websites, any press releases to major networks, and an article in the Food Safety News. And next slide. And I think that might be actually the end.
That's all I have.
Okay, so that is the end. Any questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Erica. Yeah. Any questions for Erica? All right. So that really concludes the formal portion of the presentations. Since we sort of skipped ahead early on, I'll go back and see if there are any questions for Mitzi at all. Keith, go ahead.
Thanks, Ben. Hey, Mitzi, great job. I think your committee work was phenomenal. I think there is application in food service distribution for what you guys have worked on, so don't forget that. So if you don't mind, maybe you and I can talk about it. I think it's a fantastic work and a fantastic document. I think food distributors would benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, really appreciate it. The team was, like all of the other committees, extensive and worked really hard on the language. And we appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
All right. Keith, thanks for the question. Mitzi, thank you. I feel like this is one of those times that we've done something miraculous of having 6 presentations scheduled for an hour. And we are able to finish about 8 minutes ahead of schedule. I'll ask David Lawrence or Dave McSwain if there's anything else that they'd like to share on behalf of CFP before we leave.
I'll just thank you, Ben, and thank you to all of the committee, the council committee chairs, and to Erica for your presentation for the safe handling cooking of roaster pig committee that, again, reported directly to the executive board. It takes a lot of work for our committees to come together to, first of all, identifying who the chairs of those committees are going to be, who the volunteers to serve on the committee, whether they're voting or at large. This is the work. This is where the work of the conference is accomplished between biennial meetings. And you will all, during the biennial meeting, there will be a committee formation session next week on Friday, August 19th. For those of you who are interested in committees or those who want to learn about committees and how they're formed and what committee opportunities will be available to you for the next biennium, I hope that you will participate that committee, that session, and then sign up through our process to join a committee. Again, that is where the work of this conference is accomplished. And you can see the quality of the work that comes out of our committees and the number of issues that go before our councils for deliberation. And also just want to remind everyone that we do have the federal agency reports coming up in an hour. That'll be from 1 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And so we look for you all to be back on and joining in that session. Again, you'll join by the link in your email, which is on your calendar, or go directly into Pathable to the agenda and join on the session task card. So
Ben,
thank
let
you all
me-
very much for your time. Go ahead,
Let me
David.
chime in just to say the committee formation session is actually on Thursday afternoon next week. So it's on the 19th and not the 20th. So we want everybody to attend, as David said. Also, because we are dealing with a fairly compressed calendar for the current biennium, so we're going to be holding the next biennial meeting in April of 2023. It's all hands on deck. We have several committees that are being recommended by two councils through issues for either creation or recreation, and we're going to have a lot of work ahead. So if someone is a new attendee, we hope you will sit in on the council orientation and committee formation session, I should say, next Thursday, but also please follow through with volunteering to work, and if you are so inclined, to chair one of these council committees, because good leadership, as you can see from our speakers today, means a great deal in terms of accomplishing the tasks that the committees have been assigned.
Thanks, David. There was a quick question from Jill Hollingsworth in the chat about how will committee sign up process work this year? Do you want to share a little bit about that?
It'll be done. There obviously, in the past we have used the 3-ring binders. That is not happening this year, or probably not going forward either. It will all be done via email. Vicki Everly will be sending out a message to all CFP members who are paid up for the current biennium. And by current now, I'm thinking in the case of 22 to 24. We will be sending that message out hopefully within a week to 10 days after the close of the biennial meeting on the 20th. It will simply state the committees, both council and standing. Individuals will be asked to rank their top 3 choices of committees and whether or not they would like to be considered to chair one of those committees. And then from that point on, we're going to try to compress the schedule a little bit, have about 3 weeks to respond. Then the preliminary rosters will be created. They'll be submitted to the board for final review and approval, and we hope to have committees in place by the 1st of October.
Great, thanks so much, David. Well, David Lawrence, you stole all my closing remarks that I had about thanking everybody for their work and reminding everyone of the federal agency reports that start at 1 p.m. Eastern time. But so I'll just restate them as I did and thank everyone for their time. I think this is, in my time attending CFP, having 160 plus participants at committee reports has got to be our most attended audience committee report session that I can remember. So thanks for everyone for getting excited about CFP beginning today and getting ready for next week. And we'll continue to see everyone at the federal agency reports shortly. So thanks so much. And that concludes our session.